Andy, this one's for you. We do thank you letters and receipts for in-kind donations of all levels, but I'm curious to know what the threshold is for needing to enter them in the accounting system. We currently only record major in-kind donations that we would otherwise be paying for, like a discount our lawyer provides on legal counsel. But I heard from a CPA friend that we should be including more than that.
Who has a CPA friend? That's weird. CPAs don't have friends. That's really strange. It's also strange because your CPA friend has given you very strange advice.
Oh, yikes. Not correct advice? Okay.
No, not correct advice at all.
Oh.
So there's very specific rules about in-kind donations, and we'll put a link in the show notes. The IRS has a page about in-kind donations, about what they are. What an in-kind donation is not just a discount that your lawyer gives you or something like that. That's actually the opposite of an in-kind donation. It's something that you can turn around and sell, or it's something that enhances an actual physical asset. So if somebody like installs a security system in your building for free, that's an in-kind donation. But if somebody just does some services for you, like just volunteer services, that doesn't count at all. So you shouldn't be putting them in the accounting system unless they're like off the balance sheet. Like so sometimes, I mean, and I'm trying to like save this guy's job. The only time you would put something that isn't supposed to be booked in the accounting system is if you want to put it someplace where it doesn't actually affect your books. So every once in a while, someone will have like a section that's like outside of everything that you don't like roll up, and maybe you put it there, but that's kind of the wrong place too. I would say anything that you want to track. If you're curious about thanking people for something, that is different from giving them a tax receipt. Tax receipts are very specific, and the IRS is going to tell you exactly what you need to know about when and how and why to give a tax receipt. And you should always give a tax receipt, even if you don't necessarily meet the threshold for giving a tax receipt. So like, it's usually $500. If somebody gives you less than $500, you don't have to give them a tax receipt, but it would be crazy not to. So always give a tax receipt when you're allowed to, but don't ever give a tax receipt if you're not allowed to, because the donor's not going to get in trouble. You are. So if you give the local business that decided to like give you guys a discount that they are going to share with somebody on something, quilts, but quilts aren't really what you do. And like, so you can't actually book that as an in-kind donation because they're giving discounts on quilts to other people. That doesn't count. And so you can't give them a tax donation, but your development team should absolutely give them a thank you note. Like if they're going to donate a portion of the proceeds or something like that, even though that's not something that you get a tax receipt for, make sure that you're thanking people appropriately. But check the link in the show notes because it's very specific and it goes into a lot of detail about what you can and can't do. And you want to make sure that you're getting the information directly from the source and not from Andy's voice on a podcast. That's probably the wrong way to do this specific activity.
Do you think there's a balance? Like one of the questions that I always have is, and you're probably going to actually hate this question because it's probably, there's black and white answers about some of this, but there's also the realities of a balancing act. Like for smaller nonprofits and I hear you about the tax receipt, but like for in-kind donations and smaller nonprofits, like, I don't know, you just kind of go, it's not the end of the world. Like, I don't know. What I would want to say is it's not the end of the world if you're not like doing tracking in-kind donations because you're small and it's not like a consistent part of what you do. But as you get bigger and get more, maybe make that, larger. But that would probably be frowned upon. Right, Andy? I don't know. I always try to be practical about like the realities of what you and I know exist for organizations.
Yeah. So I think for me, I think it's black and white for me, but also if something is an in-kind donation, even if it's very small, if it's technically counts as an in-kind donation, 100% you should book that. So if it's not an in-kind donation and you're not allowed to book it, 100% you should not book that. So there's never really for me a threshold of like, if it's over this amount, we do it, or if it's under this amount, we don't do it. For me, it's like, if it's in kind, it gets booked, because that's actually accounting. That's like the rule. You have to follow the rule. If it's not in kind, you don't book it, because that's the rule. You can't book it because it's not in kind. So, and the reason that there's even a rule is because, so the sort of canonical example of where this, because as we know, every like nonprofit regulation is because somebody did something slimy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The only reason that it exists is because somebody tried something and the IRS is like, nope, you can't do it that way. And what was happening is pharmaceutical companies were taking drugs, they were sending them to countries where the price of that drug in that country was like $1. But if you bought it in the United States, the price of that drug was like $1,000, right? We know this exists. It's been like this forever, right? The company was taking the tax write-off for $1,000, even though the drug was going to the country where that drug costs $1. And so they were juicing all of this, basically avoiding a ton of tax, because they were doing the delta between what it's here and what it is there. And that kind of comes down to the same thing with like an in-kind donation. So somebody gives you a painting and says, this painting's worth $1 zillion. It's because they want to take a tax deduction for $1 zillion. And you as the nonprofit are like, I don't think I can agree to that. So there's very specific rules about what you can and can't say about the value of particular things that you're given, which is why the IRS goes into tons of detail about it. So it depends on what it is, who gave it to you, why they gave it to you. Like there's all these rules that you have to follow. And then at the end of it, it says, this is how much you can or can't book. So it's a very specific, straightforward equation for those of us that are like, dig reading math books for fun. Like we're okay with this. We just follow the instructions, and there's no gray area in it at all.
Dang
for
it.
us, at all.
I love the gray area. You can tell
zero gray area.
I'm a bit of a renegade and I want to like push the rule on this, but nobody listened to what I just said. So pretend I didn't even ask that question.
Nonprofit governance.
Nonprofit answers.
Nonprofit board. Nonprofit management.
Nonprofit marketing. Nonprofit resources.
Welcome to Nonprofit Everything, the podcast where hosts Andy Shurick and Stacy Wedding answer your questions about all things nonprofit.
Welcome to another episode of Nonprofit Everything. I'm Andy Shurick. I'm here with my pal Stacy Wedding. We're going to answer some nonprofit questions. Maybe there'll be a guest expert involved, but who knows? Send us your questions. Questions at nonprofiteverything.com is the way you get your query answered. We'll talk about whatever you want. So send us those questions. We'll get into the weeds if you need us to get into the weeds. We're actually good at weeds.
I'm a little
us some
too
questions
weedy.
about weeds.
Yeah.
We should just change the name of the podcast to Weeds.
Nonprofit weeds. How's that?
Nonprofit weeds.
I actually I know this is kind of silly, Andy. I actually like picking weeds. I'm like, it's a very weird therapeutic thing for me. So
really,
not many people say that, right? But I go out, other than it hurting my back at this stage of my life, but I go out and pick the weeds and I'm like, oh, this feels so good. Look at all the glorious clean yard after I'm done. So.
Wow, that's I like repetitive mindless tasks, but not that one. That is one of my least favorite things to do.
Okay, invite me over to your house.
Yeah, come on over. The front yard literally is covered in dandelions right now, so I could for sure use the help.
That would give me so much joy.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll jump right in. We have a small team of 7, and in the last year, we lost 3 people to burnout. All of my colleagues share the same challenges, and from the research I've seen, burnout continues to increase, particularly among nonprofit leaders. How are we supposed to keep our team from burning out when demand for services keeps going up and our funding keeps going down?
I think it's a culture issue, and we have to get out of. I think that for years, the nonprofit sector as a whole, there's been almost this, I'm going to call a glorification of overwork. We're working so hard. We're not getting paid that much. Like there's been almost like what feels like for years, almost like a badge of honor that kind of got perpetuated into a really unhealthy place of where we're at now. And I feel like there's now there's like this flip of, there's almost like this, sometimes there's a martyr culture of like, oh, we're still working. We're still working so hard, but no, yeah, we're doing this and it's hard and we're losing people. But, what can you do? That's what you do in nonprofits. And I think all of that mindset and culture and the way leadership handles that is where we need to start to look at changes, because it's about saying, let's stop asking staff to do more with less. Like that's like, I don't know, like at some point, it's about being a little bit more realistic about and asking for what, and I know funders have historically driven this, right? Like this, we won't fund operating, we won't fund some of these like self-care, but I programs or paying people what they're worth. I think like it's got to start with us putting our foot down somewhere and saying, if we have to shrink, if we have to do fewer programs or services or whatever, like then, but have them high quality and have people not burned out, then that's what we're going to do. Like instead of, and it's hard because like we want to, right? Like those of us who are in the sector want to keep doing more. The need is huge. The demand is huge. It's higher than ever. But like at the sake of losing our staff, I worry about that. Like that keeps me up at night because I think that is going to ultimately be the demise of, like, it's going to be hard to even recruit talent to, do you know how, like, even if you look over the years, like the talent being of people interested in working in nonprofit is not growing, it's shrinking. Like people are not, as the data out there is saying, not as many people are necessarily wanting to do this because they know they hear about these stories and they hear about it, particularly younger people who are tracking all this stuff on social and stuff. I don't know, like I guess I just sit there and I go, where do we start to change that? And we can't, it's kind of like chicken and egg. Like, can the funder community start to change the way they think about the way they fund things? But also, how do we as an organization not over glorify like working, oh, you worked so hard, you worked so many hours last week, you get like this badge of honor. Like I think it starts with some of those kind of just changes, like so that you're not creating that culture that everyone in your organization does it. So probably not easy with given all the other dynamics, but how else do we solve it? It's not going to be solved by a pizza party, right? A pizza party or right? Or let's like bring in a massage therapist on a Friday afternoon who's going to go like give you a massage and great, your self-care is taken care of. Check that box. Like that doesn't work, right? Like, so it's got to be a bigger approach. I don't know. What do you think, Andy?
I'm torn because on one hand, the person asking the question is clearly concerned that this is like, we've been doing this for years. It's a pain in the butt. It's getting harder to retain staff. Funding is going down. Everybody's demoralized. Like, what do I do? And unfortunately, like the only answer that I can think of is like what's the stupid joke is that the guy goes into the doctor and says, "Doctor, it hurts when I do this." And the doctor says, "Well, don't do that." Right. That's the,
yeah.
That's kind of where I feel like maybe this is an opportunity, because funders have proven time and time again that even though they're well aware that not funding capacity building, not funding overhead, in quotes, not funding things that aren't direct program activities, something that they feel like somehow they're getting scammed. Yet at the same time, they're willing to pay a for-profit company who is going to take a profit because that's how it works, because the investors get paid to, that's fine. They don't mind paying a private company to do the same thing. And they would never think about, well, I'm just not going to buy this server. I'm going to pay you less because I don't think you should take as much profit. They'll just move on to somebody else. And so the nonprofit sector has, and again, this is only something that we've been doing since like the 1930s. So it isn't something that's permanent. It's less than 100 years that this structure of this is a sector that exists at the mercy of the federal government, because because we do not pay income taxes or do not pay taxes on our profits, to be more specific, we don't pay taxes on the money that we make above revenue over expenses. We don't pay that to the IRS. So in exchange, we've agreed to play by a different set of rules than everybody else. And at some point, we have to say, you know what? These rules are stupid. Like, you've given us too many rules to be able to do this appropriately. And the cost benefit analysis of being a nonprofit is no longer effective. And there are plenty of ways that we can get money from foundations that aren't grants. Foundations give money. They have a giant investment pool. They put a ton of money into investments, and that money doesn't do anything other than make more money for the foundation. So we've talked about program-related investments in the past. There's nothing that says a program-related investment has to go to a nonprofit either. It just has to be somehow meeting a public mission, which could totally be a for-profit. So I think there's opportunities at this point to look at, are the restrictions and is getting punched in the face by everyone from bloggers to people with podcasts to people who are running for president to all that stuff because you are a nonprofit worth it at this point to be able to serve your mission? Or can you come up with a business structure that doesn't revolve around convincing people to give you money for the promise of a tax deduction that they're not taking anyway, in many cases? I think it's time to look at that as a bigger question and saying, can we do this in such a way that we're no longer bound by all these stupid rules and we can actually get the same amount of work done? I mean, in some cases, I think the answer might be yes. In some cases, I think the answer might be no. And there's going to have to be a lot of retraining of, like, take a symphony orchestra, right? Are there any private symphony orchestras? No. Like, there's not a single one. The only ones that exist are ones that exist solely for the purpose of doing, like, film music. So they're in Hollywood and it's an orchestra of union musicians that'll do movies. Like, those are the only ones that are private. Everything else is a nonprofit. So we would be then saying that symphonies don't exist anymore because there's no way to make that work and still make money because we're requiring people to give us money to do the thing. I think in some cases you're going to end up with the answer is like, yeah, we have to stay being a nonprofit because there's no other way to do this. In other cases, you might be able to say, actually, this is more trouble than it's worth. And we can set this up in such a way that we can do the same amount of good, serve the same number of people without having to rely on a capricious federal government. I think that's where we're kind of going. And it's that external pressure from folks that are, I mean, and I have this conversation with people all the time who should know better about, well, if I give them money, they're just going to spend it on salaries or, something that's just like, it's like an infuriating thing to even hear because it's so absurd. Like, how do you think it's going to work that people are just going to do this for free? Because if that's the case, then why doesn't it exist already? Like, if you think that people could distribute,
so true,
like get food to distribute out to hungry people all over the country, and they're going to do that completely for free and spend their own money on gas, spend their own money on acquiring the food, like, then that would exist already. That would already be there. But instead, we've decided that this is the most effective way to make that work. And if you privatize it, all of that money that you're considering overhead, all that money that you're considering to be like just waste, is actually just going to go into the pocket of an investor, theoretically. But you're okay with that because it's capitalism and it's not nonprofit people trying to like make a living wage or whatever horrible thing they're up against. I mean, the whole concept becomes absurd when you sort of break it out like that. But I think there may be an opportunity in some cases to look at, is the nonprofit, is that worth it? Is that still the only way to get this done? Because if it isn't, then maybe there are other opportunities that we can look at. But that doesn't help answer the question at all, which is like, here's where we are. And no, we're not going to just like stop being a nonprofit and do something different.
Right.
So I don't know where the lever is. Like, who do you threaten? Like, if you don't be nicer to me, I'm going to quit this whole nonprofit thing and start a dry cleaners or whatever. I mean, I don't know what, like, we've got no bargaining position at all in this.
No.
So I don't know. I just feel bad for the question asker because I don't think there's an answer that I have for sure.
I feel like there's not an easy answer, right? I feel like there's I hear you talking about larger picture systems change, policy change, like bigger picture stuff that needs to be done to help fix what can be a broken model or something that's maybe antiquated that we need to revisit. I guess in the meantime, do you think, Andy, like, do you agree with when I was I just want to check myself when I was saying things like, I feel like we've kind of gotten into this glorification of overwork or like the kind of a martyr mentality that happens, almost like accepting it instead of pushing against it in even small ways, maybe not as big as what you said, but even smaller ways by saying, I'm not going to go after this funding, or I'm not going to accept this funding because it's going to add more work without any infrastructure capacity. We have no other revenue channel that's going to help like support the extra time, the extra people needed for this. It's going to add more work and we're just not going to do it. And I realize like that's hard because there's big financial implications to that. But like, do you think that is at least partly something that could be done?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what I'm saying is just like the sort of the corollary of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Which is we accept this reality.
Yeah.
Because it's what's been given to us. We don't know that there's anything different.
Yeah.
And 5 years ago, it didn't feel the same way. So 5 years ago, they were making adjustments. The GAO was making adjustments to Schedule E. So the way federal grants were being administered, they were recognizing. And it was written, it was one of the things that we got them to change. It was codified that when you go after a government grant, the government's preferred position was to pay you in advance instead of doing a reimbursement. Right. So we were actually kind of moving in the right direction.
See, that's cool.
And then, And then what we learned, and then what happens is like, it turns out that was just a handshake agreement. And now we're off in some other direction where it's like, well, I don't like that the director of your organization went to this particular school. And so we're just going to cancel your funding, which feels like, okay, now you've changed the rules of the game unilaterally. And so I think my position is like, do we continue to be martyrs? Because that's really the only viable position. If we want to continue to get the work done and somebody says, yeah, okay, if we're going to serve the same number of people we served last year, something's got to give, and it's going to be your sanity. I mean, you can say, forget this. This is not what I signed up for. I'm here to help people, not to get punched in the face repeatedly. So let's, is there something else that we can do? Yeah. And saying no to things is absolutely one of them. Like telling your board that, like, so I was just heard from someone who was talking to an organization who has been drastically affected by federal government grant cancellations, drastically. And staff wanted to say something. Staff wanted to say, look, the reason we can't meet the goals that we told you we were going to meet is because of X, Y, and Z. The board overruled them. The board said, we are not going to let you say that. Right. And so what's your position as a staff member? Your position is like, either you say, go pound sand, board, I'm going to say what I want,
right,
or you keep your job. Like where are you? And so, which is why Andy's not super happy with anybody right now, because I don't think when the rules of the game can be changed at will, like, what are we even talking about? Like, so the conceit was everybody in the US pays taxes. That goes into a fund that then we use to determine how to make the country better, period. That's now off the table. That's now not how we do it. And so the question is like, okay, so why are we playing your game? Why do I have to suffer because you're trying to score political points for whatever reason? That seems like you're doing it for the wrong reason. And maybe I'm just, being more reactionary about it than I should be. And that, in a couple of years, things are going to switch back to the way they used to be. But I feel like the the dam has got a big crack in it. And so we need to start thinking about like, how do we make the sector continue? Like, because this is just this is the canary in the coal mine. This is somebody saying, look, it's getting harder and harder to do this. What do I do? And the answer is, I don't know. Like, because like, no, I don't think you should suffer, but you need to, so we need to start having honest conversations about how do we actually get this work done in this environment? And I think those are much bigger questions than, do I accept this funding? Do I not accept this funding? Do I, right?
Yeah, I think, God, I just feel like I'm like, yes, yes, yes to everything you said. And I think it's the bigger picture that when I step back and look at what where we've been, where we're going as a sector, I mean, it concerns me, right, in a great way. And this is one of the reasons. I mean, there's several concerns with it, but this is one of them. And I go, so what? Yeah, like what is the new version of it? And I was joking with someone the other day. We were talking about how a particular state's constitution is very outdated, and like it's just like everyone's like still living in the same old, like the same stupid way of doing things, and no one's changing it. And I was like, how, like, there's got to be change makers, like looking at these bigger, and there are, right? But like, it takes time, and it's not a quick fix. I mean, the other thing I was thinking, and this is a little bit more on ground level stuff, but I also worry about, like if we looked at how many nonprofit workers themselves are living paycheck to paycheck, like our line workers at nonprofits, like that are like not making much more than the people we're serving, like that really, like, there's just a lot of, I don't know, a lot of things that need to change. And I keep thinking, this is kind of like I feel like thankfully we're starting to talk more about it with the funders. So like I do think more conversations, more articles, more things are starting to happen. So funders understand it more. And that gives me some comfort. I also thinking about, what would a funder do, Andy, right? Like you gotta, like, let's use this as a case study. I'm a funder, I'm a private foundation, and I have to do my 5% annual payout, right, in grants. And like, maybe there's not, and I have an application process and no nonprofit applies because they don't like the way, right? Like, I kind of go like, how do we like come together and say, no, we're going to show you funders, like you're like, it's not just you have all the power. We have power too. And that, that sounds probably awful, but it's true.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I think I'm probably overreacting to what I'm hearing about federal grants, because it doesn't change. I mean, other than the way tax law is changing to make it so that they're disincentivizing any kind of charitable giving at any level. Right. Like that's a different problem, but I don't know that that's going to change the behavior of people who are in it because they want the world to be better. Mm-hmm. Like we still have donors that are going to give to missions that they feel strongly about because of the work that the sector is currently doing. The problem is that that's not a quick fix. So if you built your nonprofit on federal grants, like, I'm sorry, the model broke. I don't think anybody expected that to. I mean, it was only a year ago that I was doing presentations about cash flow and talking to banks about, it's the federal grant that they've got. So like the federal government's going to pay, right? They're like when we talk about what's the safest assets, it's treasury bills. And so this is basically a loan, or the federal government owes me the money, which is why I can get a line of credit from you. And the banker would be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Right. And now it's just like, ha ha ha, that's a joke. So, I mean, I think probably I'm overreacting a little bit, but in those cases where you were really heavily reliant on the federal government, it may be time to take a step back and look at it from first principles. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? Where's the money going to come from? How do we have a pipeline? How's it going to take us? How are we going to get to the level that we're at now, recognizing that the federal government's an unreliable partner? So, I mean, I think that's honestly the answer. And it isn't a quick fix. And it doesn't change the burnout question either, because people are still going to burn out in the meantime because the work is going to change. I think if there's unfortunately, that means you're going to end up losing staff and not going to be able to rehire them because there won't be any money to pay anybody.
Right.
So that sort of solves your burnout problem in the worst possible way.
I feel really depressed now. Oh.
Yeah. I mean, there's no happy answer to this, I don't think.
No. If someone has the happy answer, please tell us.
Let us know. Email us the happy answer, and we'll update this with the happy answer if you have one.
You made it through another episode of Nonprofit Everything. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a thing or two, and hope you're sharing this with friends, colleagues. It's easy enough to share, and it just kind of expands the types of questions we get, the people and number of people listening and who are asking the questions. And so we always appreciate a share. And as you know, we always appreciate your questions. So keep them coming. And we never have not answered a question. So, and if I, for some reason, am like eating crow right now, and you're like, no, Stacy, I asked a question, you never answered it, then okay, call me out and we'll make sure to answer your question. But we really do take everything we get and answer it. So thank you. And until next time, be well.